It survived a world war and outlasted an empire. But Camp John Hay's greatest threat wasn't a foreign invader. It was the very Philippine agency that promised to protect it. This is their betrayal. Long before the roads, the golf courses, and the grand hotels, the heart of Baguio City was a vast, pine-covered valley with lush pastures. The Ibaloy people, an indigenous group of the Cordillera region, called this ancestral homeland Cafaguay. At the turn of the 20th century, American colonizers arrived and declared vast areas of this land as a U.S. military reservation. An Ibaloy chief named Mateo Cariño refused to back down, insisting the land had belonged to his family for generations. Instead of fighting with weapons, Cariño fought with the law, taking his case all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. In 1909, he won a stunning victory that established the landmark Cariño Doctrine, the very basis for native title. But Mateo Cariño never saw his victory. He died in 1908, months before the decision came out. When the court finally declared the land as private property, the Colonial Land Registration Court did not issue the title to Cariño's children or heirs. Instead, they used a cunning legal and financial loophole.
Just as we planned.
To fund his lawsuit, Cariño signed a promissory agreement with American merchant Metcalf Clark and lawyers John Hauserman and Charles Cohn, agreeing to sell them the land if he won. Consequently, the title was issued directly to these American intermediaries, who immediately transferred it to the U.S. government. To block other Ibaloy claims, the government quickly passed the Baguio City Charter, classifying remaining ancestral lands as public reservations, legally sweeping the land out from under the indigenous peoples. The U.S. military had secured its mountain retreat. The area was built up as Camp John Hay, a rest and recreation station for American soldiers escaping the lowland humidity, quickly blossoming into the idyllic summer capital of the American government known as Little America. But this peaceful sanctuary was shattered on December 8, 1941. Just hours after Pearl Harbor, Japanese aircraft bombed Camp John Hay, marking the first aerial attack on the Philippines in World War II. The camp was seized by the Japanese Imperial Forces and transformed into the nerve center for General Tomoyuki Yamashita, the Tiger of Malaya. The camp that saw the first bombs of the war in the Philippines also hosted its final end. On September 3, 1945, General Yamashita formally surrendered at the American residence within Camp John Hay. After the war, the camp was rebuilt under a 99-year lease agreement, but the clock was ticking. In 1966, the lease was drastically shortened to 25 years. The final blow came in 1991. A devastating eruption from Mount Pinatubo severely impacted key American installations, and growing nationalist sentiments led the Philippine Senate to vote against the renewal of the base's treaty. On July 1, 1991, the American flag was lowered for the last time, and they officially exited Camp John Hay. The exit of the Americans left the Philippines land-rich but cash-poor. To transform these abandoned military fortresses into engines of economic growth, the government created the Bases Conversion and Development Authority, or BCDA, in 1992. The BCDA's mandate was to convert these baselands into productive civilian use and generate capital to modernize the armed forces of the Philippines. Since 1992, the BCDA has been steered by a revolving door of powerful figures. From the founding years under Victor Lim and Rogelio Singson, through the long tenure of General Narciso Abaya, to the extensive terms of Arnel Casanova and Vince Dizon. Today, the agency is under attorney Jerry Marasigan and engineer Joshua Bing Kong. Decades of leadership, different names, different signatures. But as the torch was passed from one administration to the next, some promises were left broken. But beneath the surface of this bold experiment, the numbers told a different story. Despite sitting on a goldmine of prime military properties, the BCDA reported a staggering net loss of 6.7 billion pesos in 2008, triggering a Senate oversight inquiry. Later, in 2020, another Senate resolution sought an audit over a massive 13.2 billion pesos allegedly unremitted to the military. The agency was also plagued by massive failed infrastructure projects, such as the North Rail project, which ballooned to nearly $2 billion without a train ever running, and the SEA Games facilities, which displaced indigenous Aita communities. In 1996, amidst its struggles, the BCDA was ready to privatize Camp John Hay. The biggest tycoons in the country lined up, and the Manuela Lands and Housing Consortium won with a massive bid. However, with the 1997 Asian financial crisis approaching, the group realized the projections were unsustainable and formally withdrew. Camp John Hay was left in limbo until a white knight stepped out of the shadows. The Camp John Hay Development Corporation, or CJHDevCo. They took on the massive project when the economy was at its lowest. CJHDevCo executed the vision, building luxury icons like the Manor and the Jack Nicklaus-designed golf course. They saved the camp, turning it from an abandoned base into a top tourist destination. When CJHDevCo signed the original lease agreement in October 1996, the BCDA made 4 non-negotiable promises. First, a clean handover of vacant land. Second, a one-stop shop to process all permits without red tape. Third, tax-free provisions as a special economic zone. And fourth, a straight 50-year lease. This 50-year lease was the most critical foundational promise. During the pre-qualification conferences for the privatization of Camp John Hay, this 50-year lease was explicitly required and publicly announced by BCDA multiple times. The country's biggest developers all asked the same question.
Is the lease really 50 years, or is it just 25?
The BCDA's response was not a maybe, it was a guarantee, confirmed directly by BCDA Vice Chairman Rogelio Singson. On May 31, 1996, when a bidder asked if it was 25 years renewable for another 25, Singson corrected him immediately. Yes, practically, it's a straight 50 years. When asked if financial escalations applied to the whole term, Singson doubled down. That's correct. For the full 50 years. He stated clearly, "We're very specific about it. The lease period is over a 50-year period." But from day one, the government failed to deliver. The developer paid a 250 million peso advance, yet the BCDA failed to provide the vital Environmental Compliance Certificate, ECC, for 15 months, paralyzing construction while the Asian financial crisis struck. Furthermore, the promised clean land was occupied by settlers and government agencies. To fix this, the BCDA offered a land swap using the Voice of America compound, but it was delivered 4 years late and was heavily restricted forested land that was forbidden to touch. The fatal blow came on October 24, 2003, when the Supreme Court nullified the tax and duty exemptions within the John Hay Special Economic Zone. Because CJHDevCo's financial projections relied heavily on these tax-free incentives, their business model collapsed. Faced with a shattered model and an undelivered contract, the developer had to stop paying lease rentals just to survive. In 2008, the parties attempted a reset by signing a restructuring agreement. Despite years of losses, CJHDevCo agreed to pay back the rentals for the 5 years they had stopped paying. In exchange, the BCDA promised to establish a one-stop action center, OSAC, to process all permits within 30 days. But as months rolled by, the BCDA broke their promise yet again. The one-stop shop remained a fantasy, and the bureaucracy continued to paralyze the project. As the partnership deteriorated, the conflict escalated into outright regulatory warfare. On June 7, 2012, the Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC, issued a cease and desist order against CJHDevCo's Leaseback sales program. The BCDA had approached the SEC, accusing the developer of running an illegal investment scheme. The order was issued ex parte, meaning the developer was punished without a hearing or a trial to defend their contracts. The bitter irony of this accusation is that the government was fully aware of and participated in this very program. In 2010, the BCDA had accepted 26 condotel units from the developer as payment for debts and enrolled them in the same leaseback program. The BCDA collected the rental revenue and profited from it. When the government made money from it, the program was fine, but they weaponized it as illegal to pressure the developer. Trapped by a lack of permits and an aggressive state regulator, CJHDevCo had no choice but to file for arbitration against the BCDA in 2012. They wanted a neutral referee because the BCDA's failure to create the One-Stop Action Center meant the developer was paralyzed and forbidden from building. After 3 years of legal battles, the Arbitral Tribunal issued its decision on February 11, 2015. The ruling declared a mutual breach, finding that the BCDA failed to assist with permits and the developer failed to pay rent. To hit the reset button, the court canceled the original lease and ordered CJHDevCo to vacate the camp. However, the tribunal also ordered the BCDA to return the money, commanding them to refund the developer every peso of rent paid, a total of 1.42 billion pesos. The 2015 arbitration ruling was supposed to be a clean break between the BCDA and the developer. But in April 2015, a writ of execution was issued that didn't just order the developer to leave. It targeted all persons claiming rights under them. The BCDA used this generic phrase to order the eviction of thousands of innocent third-party homeowners and investors who were never put on trial and had nothing to do with the arbitration. CJHDevCo could have simply collected their 1.4 billion peso refund and walked away. Instead, they stood their ground and fought the government in court to protect the residents who had trusted them. Their persistence paid off when the Court of Appeals ruled in July 2015 that the innocent buyers must be protected and their contracts respected. For 9 years, the residents lived in peace. But the BCDA never put down their weapons. On April 3, 2024, the Supreme Court reversed the protections of the Court of Appeals and reinstated the eviction notice against the camp. Crucially, the Supreme Court explicitly stated that the rights of the third parties remained unadjudicated, meaning undecided. The court did not say the homeowners were illegal, and they did not say they lost their rights. Yet, the BCDA acted as if unadjudicated meant guilty. On January 6, 2025, the BCDA, backed by sheriffs and court personnel, took over the property. CJHDevCo peacefully complied and turned over the camp. But the BCDA broke every rule of fairness. They completely ignored the Supreme Court's condition to refund the developer the 1.42 billion pesos. Tragically, they also swept out legitimate property owners and evicted the third parties without giving them their day in court. The darkest hypocrisy lies in a document from 2008. 17 years prior, the BCDA signed a restructuring memorandum of agreement explicitly promising that if the lease was pre-terminated, the BCDA would handle all obligations, including protecting the rights of third parties. They put it in writing to be the safety net, but instead, it never happened. From Mateo Cariño fighting for his land to families fighting for their homes today, history repeats itself. The BCDA claimed a victory, but a victory built on broken promises and unpaid billions is simply a betrayal to the Filipino people.